Hi, I'm Jake Peters.
I'm Victor Prado,
And I'm Claudia Rivera.
and our service learning project is on financial literacy for students and their communities. So our service learning project will be discussing broken down into these components. We're going to start by talking about the methodology, how we're going to implement our project, how we're going to assess students as they proceed through the project. We're going to discuss the literature that we use to that provided the foundation for our project and the articles and such that we use to guide it. And then finally, we'll talk about the ACT core concepts and neurodevelopment methodologies that played a part within it. So just to start us off, I'll be talking about the methodology, the implementation of our service learning project. So first and foremost, our service learning project was designed to be implemented in a student club setting of sorts, something maybe like an after school program or an advisory of sorts within the school during school hours, but you could integrate it to be used in a content appropriate course, such as a math class, an econ class, or any related elective. The target audience for this service learning project will be students' peers and their members of the community, which includes the students' own families. This will be an important point we talk about coming up. The students involved with this service learning project will select and research a topic or topics that they find most relevant. They'll develop the necessary skills to deliver a workshop on that topic, and finally reflect on the process and their growth at the end of the project. Just a brief summary of our SLP, the way that it's going to be implemented. As we said, it's going to be about 10 sessions. The first 3 sessions focus on assessing to see what students know or don't know, helping them research the topics that they find relevant, and then ultimately picking their focus and the curriculum that will revolve around what's going to make up their workshop. Sessions 4 through 6, that's where we actually start. That's where the learning segment begins. The teacher is going to model the lessons for the students. Students are going to begin to work within their groups that they make to put their lesson together and the materials for their workshop. And they'll actually begin to rehearse their workshop within their groups and the rest of the class. Session 7 and 8, we'll be finalizing what's necessary for their workshop. So any materials that they might have, brochures, flyers, infographics, things of that nature, and then actually delivering their workshop at a community-centered event, such as open house, parent night, etc. The last 2 sessions, 9 and 10, are about debriefing and reflecting on students' progress. So students working to complete an individual reflection about their experience, what they learned, how well they worked within their groups, and finally a class discussion on the experience as a whole led by the teacher. Regarding the standards that we talk about, in our research, we noticed that there wasn't a wide-reaching selection of common core standards specifically related to financial literacy, but there are some standards from the fields of mathematics, English language arts, and history and social sciences that students will have to engage with. Just as an example, for mathematics, students will have to work with constructing equations and solving equations. For English language arts, they will have to conduct well-researched projects and ensure that they're gathering relevant information. And regarding history and social sciences, they're going to need to cite specific evidence in terms of the type of information that they gather and use in their workshop.
The next thing we're going to talk about is the assessments. So there's going to be informal and formal formative assessments. For the informal, when we start the project or when the students start the project, they're going to have a pair-based interviews where students can address what they know, what they want to know, and their interest in financial literacy. This will allow students to make connections with other peers as well and form groups. At this time, teachers can also gather data and that way provide more structure for the students' chosen project-based learning. Students will also select their focus based on what the whole class agrees and are interested in. The formative assessment, that will be when students will practice a presentation during that time, they'll pick what they want to present and how they present it. So the way they can present it could be in the form of a PowerPoint, a podcast, a website, or a pamphlet. Um, for all of those, the same rubric will be used to assess student work. There's also going to be an alternative informal assessment. As mentioned earlier, it can take place at like an open house or similar event in the form of a workshop. At the time, teacher will look at how the students divide their responsibilities, how they use the materials they prepared previously. Like I mentioned, the PowerPoint, the podcast, the website, or video or brochure. And the teacher will also look at how the peers how the students interacted with their peers and their audience during their presentation. There's going to be 2 final summative assessments, one group and one individual, and this will be done after their workshop. For the group assessment, students will be asked what they think went well during the presentation, what could have gone better, and how effective did they feel that they reached their goals. Individual assessment, students will reflect on their own development, successes, and challenges.
The literature review really guided a lot of what we did for our project. In the literature, the need for financial literacy is super clear. A tiny portion of Americans actually know basic financial literacy and have basic skills, and that lack of financial literacy often compounds with vulnerability. Most vulnerable people who lack knowledge of financial literacy are often targets of predatory financial practices and aren't able to build wealth or savings or plan. But the target age is unclear. Generally, scholars agree you should start young. And the goals for financial literacy can really vary, which is why we're going to let students choose the goals that meet their needs and their peers' needs best. It could be avoiding debt, it could be avoiding predatory practice, it could be building savings, building wealth, for those without generational wealth especially, and just general financial planning. We'll see in this project what students turn out. There's positive outcomes from these interventions are really varied in research. The knowledge definitely increases, that's been shown, but changes in behavior aren't clear. And so the recommendation to get the best change in behavior from the literature was to make sure that the interventions are socially engaged, which is what we planned for, to involve students in the program design, use peer education, and to make financial literacy a family effort, which is why we've involved families. And our goal is that financial literacy has this chance to address inequality, which is why we think this is an important program, but it must do so intentionally. Otherwise, it can reproduce inequality, just producing financial knowledge for those who already have it. But our goal is specifically to reach students who lack financial literacy. And we were inspired by some of the ACT core concepts and some of the neurodevelopmental concepts. Social cognition is one that really stuck with us because we're going to rely upon social learning and connections to students' lives. So we really need to be cognizant of whether or not students have those skills and to support them and create a welcome and cooperative environment. And also attention is going to be an issue because learning about financial literacy is challenging, especially because we're going to ask students to learn enough to be able to teach it. So we need to help students with multiple capacities to reflect and to discuss, to make sure the presentation is visually engaging, and to help students develop those skills at attention and at social cognition.
Some of the ACT core concepts for diversity and exceptionality, the program is designed to draw for from students' diverse backgrounds, starting with a formative assessment and an open discussion of students and their families' knowledge and experience with finances. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. For parent guardian involvement, the program is designed to involve parents, guardians by drawing upon students' knowledge of their families or the adults in their life, and if the students choose to, they can deliver a financial literacy program that serves the needs of their family.
This has been our service learning project. Thank you for your attention.